Commander Vex-Nine clicked his mandibles in what could only be described as smug satisfaction. After 12 rotations of careful planning, the Galactic Council had finally devised the perfect test. No species had ever passed the Predator simulation. Not one. The Korthani warriors with their razor-sharp claws failed within minutes. The acid-spitting Zelmorians barely lasted an hour. Even the massive Brutalians, who could crush starships with their bare hands, had run screaming from the virtual hunting ground. "This will be entertaining," Vex-Nine muttered to his assistant, a nervous little creature called Pip-7, who constantly twitched his 6 eyes. "The humans think they are so clever with their tiny brains and soft skin. Let us see how they handle real predators." The testing facility on Station Omega-12 was a marvel of technology. Holographic environments so realistic that participants often forgot they were in a simulation. Pain receptors that made every injury feel genuine. Fear responses amplified to their maximum biological limits. It was, quite frankly, psychological torture disguised as a fitness test. "Sir," Pip-7 squeaked, his voice trembling like a leaf in a hurricane, "the human delegation has arrived." Through the observation deck's transparent aluminum walls, Vex-9 watched as 3 humans walked into the preparation chamber. The first was a tall male with dark skin and confident stride, introducing himself as Captain Marcus Webb. The second was a shorter female with bright red hair tied back severely, Lieutenant Sarah Chen. The third made Vex-9 pause. This human was different. Average height, unremarkable brown hair, wearing the standard Earth Fleet uniform. But something about his movement patterns seemed odd. While his companions examined the equipment with typical human curiosity, this one simply stood still, eyes scanning the room with an almost predatory awareness. "What is that one's designation?" Vex-9 asked. Pip-7 consulted his datapad, fumbling with his multiple appendages. "Sergeant Jake Rivers, sir. Combat engineer, specializes in survival training. His psychological profile shows..." "Oh my, sir, you might want to see this." The datapad displayed Rivers' service record. Survived alone in hostile environments for weeks at a time. Expert in something called guerrilla warfare. The most interesting note read, "Subject demonstrates unusual adaptability to unknown threats. Recommend for advanced survival scenarios." Vex-9 mused, his interest piqued despite himself. Perhaps this will not be as boring as expected. The first test was simple in concept, terrifying in execution. The 3 humans found themselves in a dense forest environment, complete with the sounds, smells, and humidity of a real ecosystem. Somewhere in this virtual wilderness lurked a pack of Shadowclaw hunters, apex predators from the death world of Grimos 4. These creatures were the stuff of nightmares. Invisible, until they struck, capable of moving through solid matter, and possessing a hunting intelligence that had evolved over millions of years. Captain Webb immediately took charge, as humans so predictably did. "Standard formation, people. Chen, take point with the scanner. Rivers, watch our 6. We find shelter, establish a perimeter, and figure out what we are dealing with." Lieutenant Chen activated her tricorder equivalent device, frowning at the readings. "Sir, I am getting some seriously weird energy signatures. Multiple contacts, but they keep phasing in and out of detection." Rivers said nothing, but Vex-9 noticed the human had gone completely still again. Not the frozen stillness of fear, but the focused stillness of a predator. Interesting. The first attack came 23 minutes later. A massive shape materialized out of thin air directly behind Captain Webb, razor-sharp claws extending toward his spine. Webb spun, military training kicking in, but he was far too slow. The Shadowclaw's talons would have severed his spinal cord if this were real. Instead, the simulation registered a critical hit, and Webb collapsed, his nervous system convinced he was paralyzed from the neck down. The holographic predator vanished again, leaving Chen screaming and Rivers, doing absolutely nothing. "Why is he not moving?" Vex-9 demanded. "His commander has been eliminated." Pip-7 checked his instruments frantically. Sir, his heart rate is actually decreasing. His stress hormones are at normal levels. This makes no sense for a human under threat. Chen was now backing against a tree, scanner clutched uselessly in her shaking hands. Jake, we need to move. It is still out there. Rivers finally spoke, his voice so calm it was almost conversational. Sarah, stop making noise. You are telling it exactly where you are. Are you insane? We need to run. We need to get Webb and get out of here. Webb is gone. Running will just make you tired when it catches you. The casual way Rivers dismissed his fallen commander sent chills through even Vex-Nine's exoskeleton. Human pack loyalty was legendary throughout the galaxy. Yet this one seemed completely unmoved by his leader's fate. Chen, however, was not taking this well. You cold-blooded monster, how can you just stand there? Rivers turned to look at her, and for a moment, his expression was visible on the monitoring cameras. Vex-Nine felt something he had not experienced in decades. Genuine unease. Those human eyes held no warmth, no fear, no anger. They were the eyes of something that was calculating, measuring, hunting. Sarah, Rivers said gently, you are going to die in the next 30 seconds if you do not stop panicking. As if summoned by his words, the Shadowclaw materialized again, this time directly above Chen's position. She looked up just in time to see death descending. The creature struck with surgical precision, its claws raking across Chen's torso. She screamed, a sound of pure terror and agony that echoed through the simulation chamber. The pain was real, even if the wounds were not. She collapsed, writhing in simulated death throes. Rivers watched this happen from 15 feet away. He did not move to help. He did not cry out. He did not even flinch. By the 7 moons, whispered Pip-7, what is wrong with this human? The Shadowclaw, having eliminated 2 targets, now turned its attention to the final prey. It circled Rivers slowly, probably confused by the human's complete lack of fear response. Most creatures, when faced with inevitable death, exhibited some form of panic, fight, flight, or freeze. Rivers was doing none of these things. Instead, he was doing something that made Vex-Nine's blood run cold. Rivers was smiling. Hello there, beautiful, Rivers said conversationally to the invisible predator. I have been wondering when you would come for me. The Shadowclaw paused in its circling, clearly puzzled by this response. Its programming included thousands of prey behaviors, but casual conversation was not among them. You know, Rivers continued, moving slowly toward a fallen log. Where I come from, we have creatures a bit like you. We call them jaguars. Ambush predators, nearly invisible in their element, absolutely lethal when they strike. Vex-Nine found himself leaning forward, despite his better judgment. What was this human doing? The thing about jaguars, Rivers said, settling himself comfortably on the log, is that they are used to being the apex predator. Top of the food chain. Nothing hunts them. His smile widened, revealing what seemed like far too many teeth. But humans, we have been hunting jaguars for thousands of years. The Shadowclaw attacked. Rivers moved with a speed that should have been impossible for a human. Not away from the attack, but toward it, rolling under the creature's claws and coming up behind it. His hands moved in a complex pattern, and suddenly he was holding something that definitely had not been in the simulation parameters. Improvised garrote, Rivers explained pleasantly to the confused predator. Made from your friend's uniform strips and a couple of rocks for weight. The weapon snapped taut around the Shadowclaw's neck. Learned this from a documentary about Amazon tribes. Amazing what you can accomplish with the right motivation. The simulation's safety protocols immediately began screaming warnings. The Shadowclaw was not supposed to be vulnerable to simple physical restraints. These creatures were designed to be unstoppable killing machines. Rivers, apparently, had not received this memo. You see, he continued, tightening his improvised weapon. The secret to hunting apex predators is not to be stronger or faster than they are. It is to be more creative, more adaptable, more willing to do whatever it takes to survive. The Shadowclaw thrashed wildly, its claws raking gouges in the surrounding trees. But Rivers held on with grim determination. His calm, conversational tone never wavered. Humans did not evolve to be the strongest or the fastest. We evolved to be persistence hunters. We would chase our prey for days, weeks if necessary, until it collapsed from exhaustion, and when it could not run anymore. Rivers jerked the garrote tight. We would finish the job. The Shadowclaw gave one final spasm and went limp. Silence fell over the simulation chamber. In 12 rotations of testing, no species had even managed to injure a Shadowclaw hunter, let alone kill one. The testing facility's computer systems were throwing error messages faster than the processors could handle them. Rivers stood up, dusted off his uniform, and looked directly at the observation camera. "So," he said pleasantly, "was that the test, or do you have something more challenging?" Vex-Nine stared at the human in absolute shock. Beside him, Pip-7 had gone completely catatonic. All 6 eyes rolled back in his head. "Sir," came a trembling voice from the communications console, "the human is requesting immediate advancement to Phase 2 of the testing protocol. Phase 2, the Nightmare Gauntlet." No creature in galactic history had survived Phase 2. The few who had been foolish enough to attempt it had been reduced to gibbering wrecks within minutes. "He cannot be serious," Vex-Nine muttered. Through the speakers, Rivers' voice came back with that same unsettling calm. "I assume you are monitoring this. Just so we are clear, I know exactly what I just did, and I know you were not expecting it. Your little invisible cat there was programmed to be unstoppable, was it not? Well, congratulations. You just learned something new about humans." He paused, and when he continued, his voice carried a note that made Vex-Nine's carapace crawl with dread. "We are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the fastest or the smartest or the most technologically advanced, but we are the most stubborn. And when you corner us, when you threaten our survival, we become something your computer simulations cannot account for. We become creative, we adapt, we improvise, we survive." Rivers walked over to where Captain Webb lay paralyzed and knelt beside him. With gentle efficiency, he began checking Webb's vital signs, his earlier coldness replaced by obvious concern for his commander. "Oh, and one more thing," Rivers added, without looking up. "That thing about humans being pack animals, that is absolutely true. But we are also capable of tactical thinking. Sometimes, to save the pack, one member has to make the hard choices. Webb and Chen are not dead. They are injured and need medical attention. If I had tried to save them during the attack, all 3 of us would have died." Vex-Nine felt his worldview shifting in ways that made him deeply uncomfortable. Every projection, every simulation, every psychological profile the Council had developed about humans was suddenly suspect. "Shall I continue to Phase 2? Rivers asked politely. Before Vex-Nine could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Not simulation alarms, real ones. "Commander," the voice of station security crackled through the intercom. "We have a problem. Multiple unidentified ships are approaching the station. They are not responding to hails, and their energy signatures match known pirate configurations." Vex-Nine cursed in 3 different languages. Raiders had somehow detected the testing facility despite all their security measures. Station Omega-12 was not a military installation. It was a research facility with minimal defenses. "How many ships?" he demanded. "Initial count shows at least 20 vessels, sir. Mixed configuration, but definitely hostile intent. They are jamming our communications and charging weapons." Through the observation window, Rivers had gone completely still again. But this time, his head was tilted as if listening to something. "Those are not simulation alarms," he said quietly. No, Vex-Nine realized with growing horror. They were not. And somehow, the human had recognized the difference. The simulation chamber's walls dissolved as emergency protocols activated, revealing the stark reality of Station Omega-12's corridors. Rivers helped Captain Webb to his feet. the paralysis effects fading as medical nanobots worked to restore his nervous system. "Jake," Webb gasped, still shaky from the simulation trauma. "What happened in there? The way you moved, the way you killed that thing." "Later, Captain," Rivers replied, already scanning their surroundings with that predatory awareness Vex-Nine had noticed earlier. "Right now, we have bigger problems." Lieutenant Chen was recovering more slowly, her body still convinced it had suffered mortal wounds. Rivers knelt beside her, checking her pulse and pupil dilation with practiced efficiency. "Sarah, listen to my voice. The pain is not real. Your body is fine. I need you functional in approximately 3 minutes." "3 minutes for what?" she whispered. Rivers smiled that unsettling smile again. "For when those raiders breach the station." Vex-Nine watched this exchange through the security monitors, his mandibles clicking nervously. How could he possibly know their timeline? Pip-7, having recovered from his earlier shock, consulted his instruments with trembling appendages. "Sir, the human appears to be correct. Our defense grid estimates hull breach in 2 minutes, 57 seconds. Impossible. He has no access to our tactical systems." "Sir," came another voice from the communications array. "The human is requesting immediate access to Station Commander Torres." Station Commander Torres was a grizzled veteran of the Rigel campaigns, a Tyrellian whose forearms could operate weapon systems faster than most species could think. She materialized on the main view screen, her expression grim. "Commander Vex-Nine, we have a situation. 23 raider vessels, mixed species configuration. They are using some kind of jamming technology that is disrupting our automated defenses." "What do you need from us?" Vex-Nine asked, though he already suspected he knew the answer. "Every able-bodied being on this station needs to be armed and ready for boarding actions. That includes your test subjects." Through the monitors, Rivers had somehow managed to get both Webb and Chen back on their feet. All 3 humans were moving through the corridors with military precision, heading directly toward the armory without any apparent knowledge of the station's layout. "How are they navigating?" Vex-Nine demanded. "Sir, I believe the human called Rivers is following the sound patterns of the emergency alarms. Different sections of the station use slightly different frequencies to indicate specific types of threats. He appears to be using auditory triangulation to locate key areas." That was actually brilliant and terrifying. The human was treating the station like just another jungle, using his senses to navigate unfamiliar terrain. The first explosion rocked the station as raider cutting beams began slicing through the outer hull. Emergency lighting bathed everything in an ominous red glow, and the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Rivers reached the armory first, somehow knowing exactly where to find the manual override controls. Within seconds, he had the weapons lockers open and was distributing equipment to his companions. "Jake," Captain Webb said as he checked the charge on a plasma rifle, "I need to ask. What you did in that simulation, was that really just jungle tactics?" Rivers paused in his equipment selection, holding what appeared to be several grenades and a device Vex-Nine did not recognize. "Captain, humans have been the apex predator on Earth for over 50,000 years, not because we are stronger or faster, but because we are adaptable. We learn from everything that tries to kill us, and we get better at killing it back." He attached the grenades to his belt with practiced ease. "Those Shadowclaw things, they hunt like Earth jaguars. But Earth jaguars never had to deal with humans who had been studying them for millennia. We know exactly how to turn their strengths into weaknesses." Lieutenant Chen, now fully recovered and armed with a pulse carbine, looked at her companion with new respect and perhaps a touch of fear. "And these raiders?" "Same principle applies. They are expecting station security, predictable responses, standard tactics, maybe some automated defenses. They are not expecting someone who has spent years learning how to kill things that should not be killable." The second explosion was much closer, sending vibrations through the deck plating. Emergency broadcasts echoed through the corridors as Station Commander Torres coordinated the defense. "All personnel to defensive positions. Boarding parties detected on levels 7, 12, and 15. This is not a drill. Rivers moved toward the armory exit, then stopped. He turned to look directly at the security camera, as if he knew Vex-Nine was watching. "Commander, I know you can hear me. I am going to make you an offer." Vex-Nine activated the two-way communication system. "What kind of offer, human? You have been testing species to see if they can handle your worst-case scenarios, right? Well, congratulations. You are about to get a live demonstration of what humans do when the stakes are real." Another blast shook the station. Through the internal sensors, Vex-Nine could see raider boarding parties cutting their way through multiple hull sections simultaneously. These were not random pirates. This was a coordinated military assault. "What do you want?" Vex-Nine asked. "Access to your internal communication system, a complete station schematic, and tactical command authority over any security personnel willing to follow my lead." "Absolutely not. You are a test subject, not a commanding officer." Rivers shrugged. "Fine, then you can handle this yourself. Good luck." He started walking away from the camera, but Vex-Nine could see the tactical displays. The raiders were advancing through 3 separate corridors, overwhelming the scattered resistance with superior numbers and firepower. Station Omega-12's defenders were falling back on all fronts. "Wait!" Vex-Nine called out. "What makes you think you can succeed where our trained security forces are failing?" Rivers paused, not turning around. "Because your security forces are fighting like prey animals. They are trying to avoid getting killed. I am going to fight like a predator. I am going to try to kill everything that does not belong here." The distinction sent chills through Vex-Nine's exoskeleton, but the tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. On level 15, an entire security squad had just been eliminated by raider heavy weapons. "Very well. You have tactical command. PIP-7, grant him access to our systems." Rivers smiled that predatory smile and pulled out the unidentified device he had taken from the armory. It was, Vex-Nine realized, a portable hacking unit designed for boarding actions. "Already done, Commander. I have been monitoring your networks for the last 10 minutes. Of course he had. Within seconds, Rivers was coordinating with Station Commander Torres, his voice calm and professional as he analyzed the tactical situation. But Vex-Nine noticed something disturbing in the human's tone. He sounded excited. "Commander Torres, I need you to order all remaining security teams to fall back to defensive positions on levels 8, 13, and 16. Make it look like a general retreat." "Sergeant Rivers, that will give the raiders control of nearly half the station." "Yes, it will. It will also funnel them into 3 specific corridors where I can kill them more efficiently." The casual way Rivers discussed mass slaughter was deeply unsettling, but his tactical analysis was sound. By abandoning the outer defensive perimeters, Torres could concentrate her remaining forces in more defensible positions. "What about the civilians on those levels?" Torres asked. "Already evacuating to emergency shelters. Captain Webb and Lieutenant Chen are handling civilian evacuation while I prepare the welcoming committee." Through the security monitors, Vex-Nine watched Rivers move through the station with fluid grace, placing what appeared to be improvised explosive devices at key structural points. His movements were precise, economical, and utterly ruthless. "Sir," PIP-7 whispered, "he is turning the station itself into a weapon." The raiders, sensing victory as the defenders fell back, pressed their advantage with increased aggression. They poured through the breach points in dense formations, exactly as Rivers had predicted they would. The first trap triggered on level 7. Rivers had somehow rigged the artificial gravity generators to create a localized field reversal, sending an entire squad of raiders slamming into the ceiling with bone-crushing force. Those who survived the initial impact found themselves trapped in a gravity well, unable to move as secondary explosions eliminated them. "Impressive," Commander Torres admitted over the communication system, "but we still have raiders on levels 12 and 15. "Not for long," Rivers replied. Level 12's trap was more subtle. Rivers had identified the raiders' species composition through the security feeds and adjusted his tactics accordingly. The boarding party included several Matharian warriors who required a specific atmospheric mixture to function effectively. Rivers had vented their required gases into space and replaced them with a compound that, while not immediately lethal, would cause severe disorientation and respiratory distress. The Matharians collapsed within minutes, and their human allies found themselves fighting both the defenders and their own suffocating allies. But it was level 15 where Rivers truly demonstrated why humans were so terrifying. The Raider heavy assault team had advanced deep into the station, confident in their superior firepower and numbers. They controlled nearly a third of level 15 when Rivers sprung his trap. "You know what I love about advanced technology?" Rivers asked over the general communications system, his voice echoing through the corridors where the Raiders were advancing. "It is so complex that most species never really understand how it works." The lights went out. Emergency power failed. Artificial gravity shut down. Life support systems stopped functioning. In the space of 30 seconds, Rivers had turned level 15 into a zero-gravity, pitch-black, airless death trap. But unlike the Raiders, who were now struggling with equipment malfunctions and disorientation, Rivers had prepared for exactly these conditions. Through infrared sensors, Vex-Nine watched the human move through the darkened corridors like a ghost. He wore salvaged environmental gear and night vision equipment, turning the Raiders' advantages into fatal weaknesses. The slaughter was methodical, efficient, and absolutely terrifying. Rivers hunted them one by one, using their own confused movements against them. A Raider would fire blindly into the darkness, revealing his position, and Rivers would eliminate him with surgical precision. Within 20 minutes, level 15 went from a Raider stronghold to a tomb. "My ancestors," whispered Commander Torres. "What manner of creature are we dealing with?" Rivers' voice came back over the communication system, still calm and conversational, despite having just eliminated over 40 armed Raiders in single combat. "The kind of creature that evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill us, Commander. The kind that learned to turn every disadvantage into an advantage, every weakness into strength. The kind that never, ever gives up." The remaining Raider forces, suddenly aware that their overwhelming numerical advantage had evaporated, attempted to retreat to their ships. But Rivers had anticipated this as well. "Captain Webb, Lieutenant Chen, are the civilian evacuations complete?" "Affirmative, Jake. All non-essential personnel are in the emergency shelters." "Excellent. Commander Torres, I need you to depressurize the docking bays. All of them. That will destroy the Raider ships." "Yes, it will. It will also ensure that none of them escape to report our defensive capabilities to their allies." The moral implications of this action clearly troubled Commander Torres, but the tactical necessity was undeniable. These Raiders had attacked a research facility with intent to kill or capture everyone aboard. Allowing them to escape would only invite future attacks. The docking bay depressurization was swift and final. The Raider vessels, caught between the explosive decompression and Rivers' previously placed charges, were reduced to expanding clouds of debris within minutes. Silence fell over Station Omega 12. Rivers stood in the command center, surrounded by the bodies of the last few Raiders who had attempted to capture the station's control systems. His uniform was torn, his hands were bloody, and his expression was calm as a mountain lake. "Threat neutralized, Commander Torres. Station secure." Vex-Nine stared at the human through the security monitors, his mind struggling to process what he had just witnessed. A single human had eliminated an entire Raider fleet using nothing but improvised tactics and an intimate understanding of how to turn environmental factors into weapons. "Sergeant Rivers," Vex-Nine said slowly, "I believe we need to discuss your species' admission to the Galactic Council." Rivers looked up at the camera, and for the first time since the crisis began, his expression showed genuine surprise. "Admission? I thought this was just a test to see if we were tough enough to join your military alliance." "It was," Vex-Nine replied, "and you have just proven that humans are not merely tough enough to join our alliance. You have proven that any species foolish enough to threaten an alliance that includes humans would be making a fatal mistake. Rivers considered this for a moment, then smiled. Not the predatory smile he had worn during combat, but something warmer and more genuinely human. Well then, Commander, I guess we passed your test. He had indeed, in the most spectacular, terrifying, and effective way imaginable. As Station Omega-12 began damage control and casualty assessment, Vex-Nine made a mental note to recommend immediate revision of all Council threat assessments regarding Earth and its inhabitants. Humans, it seemed, were not just another species seeking membership in their galactic community. They were the apex predators the galaxy never knew it needed.